How David Beckham negotiated an option into his 2007 LA Galaxy contract, letting him buy an MLS expansion franchise for a discounted $25 million. MLS later offered him $50 million to give the option up, and he refused. Commissioner Don Garber said the likelihood it would ever pay off was close to zero. Expansion fees rose from $10 million in 2007 to $325 million for Charlotte. He exercised the option in 2014 and founded Inter Miami, now the most valuable club in MLS, at $1.45 billion. In 2026, the Sunday Times Rich List put the Beckhams at £1.185 billion. Britain's first billionaire sportsman, crediting the Messi signing directly. A player out-negotiated an entire league. How did a footballer turn a $25 million contract clause into a billion-dollar empire while the league begged him to walk away? In 2007, Major League Soccer was a league in search of an identity. It had survived its first decade, but barely. Stadiums were half empty. The world didn't take it seriously. Then David Beckham walked into the room. He was the most famous footballer on the planet, leaving Real Madrid for a league that had never signed a player of his caliber. But Beckham didn't just want a salary. He wanted something no player had ever asked for: the right to buy an MLS expansion team for $25 million. The league needed him. Therefore, they said yes. Commissioner Don Garber later admitted the likelihood it would ever pay off was close to zero. A $25 million option to own a team in a league where expansion fees were just $10 million. It seemed like a vanity clause, a symbolic gesture for a global icon. But Beckham saw something the league didn't. Years later, MLS offered him $50 million to give the option up. He refused. He exercised it in 2014, founding Inter Miami. Today, that franchise is valued at $1.45 billion. A player out-negotiated an entire league. But the question remains, what was so risky about this deal that the commissioner called it a long shot? The league tried everything. They offered him double what he paid, a clean $50 million to simply walk away. No risk, no stadium battles, no years of red tape, just cash right now. But Beckham said no. Commissioner Don Garber had called the option's value close to zero. The math seemed obvious. Take the money, call it a win. Yet Beckham held. He didn't see a worthless clause. He saw a door that would only swing one way, and once closed, it would never open again. So he sat across from men who controlled an entire league, men who had built their careers on saying no to players, and he told them, "I'm keeping it." They pushed. They reminded him that expansion fees had been $10 million just years earlier, that no one had ever turned a player option into a franchise, that the entire business model depended on owners, not athletes, making those calls. But Beckham had already learned something they hadn't. He understood that a right is only worthless if you never use it, and he intended to use it. Why would he turn down double the money for something the league said was worthless? Subscribe to decode the next billion-dollar sports bet. The league thought the option was a gimmick, a marketing stunt to lure a global star to a fledgling league. But Beckham saw something else. He saw a seat at a table that hadn't even been built yet. Year after year, MLS expansion fees climbed from a modest sum to a staggering figure. The gap between what Beckham could pay and what new owners were paying widened into a chasm. The league grew nervous. They offered him $50 million to simply walk away. Cash in hand, no risk, no headache. He refused. Picture that moment, a single player sitting across from an entire league saying no to a fortune, because he believed the option was worth more than the offer. Commissioner Don Garber had called the likelihood of it paying off close to zero. But Beckham held. He waited. He watched the numbers rise, the cities line up, the value compound. He didn't just hold the option, he held the leverage. Every new expansion team that paid a record fee made his discount more valuable. Every year that passed, the league's growth proved him right. The worthless clause became a ticking asset. But he couldn't wait forever. The option had an expiration date. He had to choose a city, a site, a moment, and the moment had to be perfect. What city did he choose, and why was timing everything? Picture this, 2014. David Beckham stands in a vacant lot in downtown Miami. No stadium, no fans, no guarantee the city even wants a soccer team. He exercises his option, the one the league begged him to sell for a fortune. He refused. Now he owns the right to build a franchise in a football desert. Miami is a city that worships the sun, not the ball. The heat is brutal. The culture is beach, not bleachers. Beckham walks into meeting after meeting with city officials, developers, skeptics. They ask the same question. Why here? He has no answer but his name. That name opens doors, but it doesn't build a stadium. Years pass. Permits stall. Lawsuits pile up. The dream looks like a mirage, but Beckham doesn't blink. He knows something the league doesn't. He's not just building a team, he's planting a flag. The desert will bloom, but only if he waits, and waits, and waits. Finally, the stadium breaks ground. The team takes the field. The fans trickle in, then flood. Today, Inter Miami is valued at $1.45 billion, the most valuable club in the league. A fortune built from a clause the commissioner called worthless. How do you turn a struggling expansion team into the most valuable club in the league? The move that turned Inter Miami from a promising project into a global phenomenon was not a stadium deal or a jersey sponsor. It was a single signature. In 2023, David Beckham did what no MLS owner had done before. He convinced Lionel Messi to leave European football for South Florida. But this wasn't just a player acquisition. It was a masterstroke that redefined the club's entire value. Messi didn't come cheap. The contract was a labyrinth of revenue sharing, Apple TV subscriptions, and Adidas royalties. Yet Beckham understood something the league had missed for years. A player of Messi's caliber doesn't just win games. He transforms the business within months. Inter Miami's social media exploded. Ticket prices tripled. The league offered him $50 million to walk away, a guaranteed profit right there on the table. Commissioner Garber said the likelihood it would ever pay off was close to zero, but Beckham didn't see a gamble. He saw a future the league couldn't imagine. He held, he waited, he watched as expansion fees climbed from $10 million to $325 million for Charlotte. The math was simple. His $25 million option was now worth a fortune, yet he still didn't cash out. He built instead. Inter Miami launched in 2014. A decade later, it's valued at $1.45 billion, the most valuable club in MLS. A player out-negotiated an entire league. Not with a faster sprint or a better cross, but with a clause in a contract. Leverage isn't just for owners. It's for anyone who understands that the real game happens before the ink dries. So here's the question that lingers. Beckham turned a discount into an empire. He proved that a player can own the board, not just move across it. But if one man can do this, what stops the next? Could the next sports billionaire be a player, not a team owner? The league begged him to take the money. $50 million, a guaranteed fortune for a man who had already made millions kicking a ball. But Beckham said no. He didn't blink. He didn't negotiate. He simply refused. That was the turning point. The moment a footballer out-negotiated an entire league, not by demanding more, but by holding onto a clause everyone else thought was worthless. Commissioner Garber had called the likelihood of it ever paying off close to zero. Expansion fees were $10 million in 2007. Beckham's option was 25. He kept it. Years passed. The league grew. Fees climbed. By 2014, the math had flipped. He exercised the option and founded Inter Miami. Today, the club is valued at $1.45 billion. A player turned a contract footnote into the most valuable franchise in MLS. The lesson is brutal and clean. When you see the future clearly, you don't need everyone to agree. You just need to be right. Beckham's conviction looked like hubris. It looked like stubbornness. But it was patience backed by a bet on the inevitable. The same trait that built the empire, refusing to fold, could destroy it if he ever misreads the next curve. Ambition and ethics don't always align. Next time, how a quiet accountant built a hidden monopoly on the world's most overlooked resource and made a fortune while nobody was watching. This is the Monopoly Matrix, where the game is rigged in your favor.